Hi, I'm Josh Gonzalez, and welcome to Mind Meld. This is a podcast where I have deep conversations with some of the brightest people in the known universe. My aim here is to spark deep conversations around interesting topics to find the tools, tactics, and philosophies that we can all use in our daily and creative lives. This is part one of a two-parter episode with John Marzo. We just recorded a roughly 2-hour conversation, so this is the first time that I've decided to chop it up into multiple episodes, so this is just part one of two. I know John from our days working at the DMZ, and I'm talking about the business incubator in Toronto, not the Korean demilitarized zone. A little bit of a backstory on John. He's a fanatical problem seeker who wants to change the world by bridging the gap between scientific design and innovative business. John is a serial entrepreneur and currently owns several businesses ranging from e-commerce to SaaS, and he's always looking for new markets and problems to solve. He holds a patent for a revolutionary dustpan design that doesn't leave that annoying line of dirt behind. You know the one I'm talking about. He's also an ex-aerospace engineer student who ultimately switched over to industrial engineering, where he earned his degree at Ryerson University. And that's how we met, when we were both at Ryerson at the DMZ. In this episode, part one, we talk about John's bold 40-year vision for creating an asteroid mining company. We talk about his lessons learned from these past failed ventures and how one of them was actually killed by Bumble, the dating app. And we also talk about his patent process with his dustpan design, and he gives some tips and advice on the patenting process and how to really design your patents. Throughout this episode, we talk a lot about the startup process, both of our failed projects, and some challenges that we've learned along the way. One of the most interesting things to me is when John talks about his mental model for how he views life and business. And this is something that I've somewhat adopted in my own life already. It's all about getting to where you want in life and how to avoid problems and distractions along the way so you can keep moving forward to your ultimate destination in life, wherever that may be for you. So obviously you have to have a vision for where you want to go, but once you have that, John has a great mental model of how to get there quicker. So let's get right into it. I'm Josh Gonzalez, and this is Mind Meld Part 1 with John Marzo. Well, John, thanks so much for coming on Mind Meld, man. This is awesome. This is like...
It's long overdue.
It's long overdue, but full circle, because you were the first guest on my first podcast. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't even like... I don't even think we released that one, the first episode of Think Tank.
Yeah, I remember that in some like back recording studio in Ryerson in like the media building. That was a long time ago, man. It was like 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was like 5 years ago in the Spirit Live, which is like the student radio station back there. I don't even think it exists back there anymore. They have like a whole new multi-million-dollar recording studio now on the first floor of that building.
Oh my God.
It's sick. So that's where we ended up doing the podcast, which is really cool. But anyways, man, this is awesome to get you on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, no problem. This is really cool. I know this is going to be a really cool episode because we can talk about so many different things. Like we always talk about everything from like the newest technologies to like entrepreneurship. And it's really cool because we met each other at DMZ. So maybe we can kind of like start there and talk about your time at Ryerson and the DMZ and how you came to what you're doing now. And you can kind of explain what you're doing right now for everyone listening.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start where it all began. I basically got into Ryerson for aerospace engineering in 2012. At that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I only got into aerospace because I designed an engine that I wanted to build. So I decided that aerospace engineering was probably the best move for me. But as the degree kind of processed a bit, I started designing, non-aerospace related things. So I eventually switched programs into mechanical engineering. At that point, it was very insightful because a lot of the engineering curriculum is fundamentals at first. So they kind of beat the joy out of you. It's kind of a lot of algebra, a lot of math, a lot of physics. And then all the fun stuff comes in third year, fourth year. But I noticed that as I was, designing and inventing all these different things, I couldn't really figure out how to sell them and market them and kind of turn them into something other than a drawing. So at this point, I started realizing that the industrial engineering program shares the first 2 years with mechanical engineering. And a quick little side note, industrial engineering is like the engineering of industry. So it's quote unquote business engineering. So it's a lot of optimization, process improvement, things like that. And the beautiful thing is about entrepreneurship and how this all ties in. It's kind of this beautiful kind of melding of everything, is that if you look at business as a spectrum, the first third of it is arguably entrepreneurship, where you have ideation on the far left. And then that ends at like a lean startup where you have like, I don't know, 15 employees or something. And that's kind of where I would argue entrepreneurship stops and starts to be full-fledged business. And then it's that point where, a guy with a business degree or an MBA or something can kind of pick up from there and scale it. So the thing about industrial engineering is that's where that starts. So you learn about best practices for a lot of different business applications from a technical standpoint, using math and optimization as a force of business growth rather than emotion. So for me, now that I have the industrial engineering degree, which is what I eventually graduated with, I took the entrepreneurship minor as well. So I feel now that I can kind of plug into that spectrum, whether it's ideation through my entrepreneurship training, or lean startup with my entrepreneurship training, or creating a 3,000 person company, or growing to a 3,000 person company with the knowledge from the industrial engineering side. I can kind of plug in anywhere and kind of grow. So I feel like I kind of have this unfair advantage of I can come up with an idea, but I can also turn it into like a big business. So I'm excited about that and what it's been able to do for me so far. So
that's awesome. We'll definitely get into sort of like your journey and like how you've actually been able to use all this. But I think what's really cool, you just touched on a great subject here. It's like anyone can have an idea. Anyone can have the next Facebook idea, right? Like the ideation and the entrepreneurship is more of like a mindset, right? Like the beginning stages is like the awakening moment of like, you're not just working for someone. You're not just going to get a job. You're like, hey, I want to actually do something. And then you're actually going to put action into it. But then you need the process. Exactly. Yeah, but then you need the processes. And like you said, like it gets to a point where if you do want to grow a big company where you do need to have processes in place. And I've never really thought of industrial engineering as that. I always thought of it as sort of like more like in engineering processes that you'd use in like, manufacturing.
Factory.
Yeah, factory, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's the common misconception is people think industrial engineering is you're making factories. But don't get me wrong, that is a facet of that, but it's definitely the root of industrial engineering is purely process improvement.
Totally.
So you can apply that to any industry, right?
Yeah. And like that's where a lot of innovation comes from. You don't even have to have a full new business model, new app idea. You could just innovate purely on the process, which is really cool.
Well, perfect example, and a lot of people can resonate this because it's very public knowledge, is when Steve Jobs passed away, Tim Cook took his position and he's an industrial engineer. So he didn't start Apple. He didn't kind of come up with the computer idea. He's not Woz. He's not all these different people, but the board of Apple thought that this industrial engineering person was the best person for this job. And that goes to show it's not nonsense. Like industrial engineers can be outstanding business people.
Totally. So then what's the difference between, it seems like it's like you're building the machine and then running the machine and making sure that it's like innovating on that machine. So what are the different skill sets that you found so far between like the building of the machine and then like running it and scaling it?
When you say machine, are you referring to like a business model or like a literal machine?
No. Oh yeah. Good call. So I mean like the machine as the company, as like your processes of all those things combined, really.
Well, so that's a beautiful thing to touch on, is because a lot of, whether it be a machine or a business model or a corporate culture or an app, at the end of the day, and I know we talked about this before, but again, it goes down to first principles and how you can, look at analogies or look at first principles, but almost everything has an input requirement, a black box, which uses those inputs, and then outputs, whether it be waste or power or whatever that ends up being. So when you have a machine, you need energy or fuel or whatever, and then some mechanical process or some system takes over, and then you get a result, whether it be power, energy, exhaust, heat, sound, a whole bunch of different things. And you can apply those same first principles to a business where you need money, you need manpower, you need information, arguably, to then create a result and ultimately gain profit for your investors, right?
Totally. And I think like right now, the king of that we've been seeing all over the news in the stock markets is our man, Elon Musk, right? Like taking that to not just electric vehicles, but in SpaceX. And man, I don't know if people are listening to this or watching the video or not, but you're wearing a NASA shirt, which is pretty cool. So clearly repping the aerospace engineering.
Yes.
So I know you jive well. And I think we're one of the earlier backers of Elon Musk, just back in the day being in entrepreneurship before people really took hold of this guy as like a cultural icon.
He became a meme, but before that, he was like this iconic kind of arguably mythical guy who people in the underworld, I know it sounds like super boomer to be like, I liked Elon before he was cool, but it's legit. That's very true. Like people found him on the Joe Rogan podcast and was like, who the hell is this? Like this guy smokes weed and makes rockets. Like who the heck is this? But arguably back in the day, he was the true Elon. I think he's getting a little bit wacky, but that's just my opinion. I don't know.
You have to be, man. If you're doing that kind of stuff, you have to have something going on. He's doing some
or
cool
it turns
stuff.
you wacky.
I could definitely see that, man. I don't know if, he's even said that he would not wish that upon anyone. He's like, I do not recommend this to anyone.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's that that old adage where it's like live like a king or die like a god. Live like a king is very opulent and, go to the club, get smashed, do all these different things. And then nothing happens when you die, or you kind of eat shit your whole life and kind of work your ass off and do all these arguably stupid things, objectively stupid things that are just, in the object of self-preservation, you're doing the opposite. You're working 30 hours a day. If you could, he would work 30 hours a day.
Totally.
And he's killing himself. But history books for now and ever will be like, oh, this Elon guy did this thing. So he died like a god. So that's like, what side of the coin are you on? Right. And I think he's very clear on the other side. So
totally, man. And I already had this discussion on another podcast. I always love to bring this on these episodes, especially with people like you that have the same mindset where it's like, there's people who start these businesses as lifestyle businesses, these fake business gurus we see all the time, people doing random drop shipping. And it's like, you have to understand whether your business, I guess, is a means to an end or the end itself. Like you said, are you going to go into the history books? Do you actually want to have an actual impact on the world? Or are you just trying to make money to go to the club and have this really cool car and,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a legacy is very cheesy, but for most people, because they don't have one or they don't want one. But for the people that actually want one, it's very soul nurturing to know that your daily life is contributing to your memory. And I think that's cool. That's important. To me, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Is there anything that you're working on right now that kind of leads to that? Or again, it could even be a means to the end.
Yeah. So I don't know if we've had this discussion before, but I have a super duper kind of ridiculous long-term plan that all the stuff I'm doing kind of ties into. So again, it's means to an end, not just again to get the resources of getting some money and hoping that that's enough to satisfy me. This is my plan. I'm well aware will probably not be complete until I'm 65. I know that.
Wow. Are you open to sharing that plan?
Yeah. I think we've talked about this before. I want to start an asteroid mining company.
Man, I do remember you talking about this. So tell me a little bit more about this. What's the plan? Why do that? And what is sort of the implications of it?
So the plan, it's kind of like a hilarious kind of threefold plan, but it at the end of the day, a project like the one that is being proposed is very capital intense. So you can't, this is not like a lemonade stand where you can, go in with $5 and buy a bag of lemons. You need billions of dollars to actually create something that can work. Otherwise it's just a total waste. So a lot of my phases now are just capital acquisition. So to the person who doesn't know me, just thinks I'm trying to make money, doesn't know that at the end of the day, when I'm 65, I want to be one of the people that is running one of the four. I think there'll probably be four because that's how big the market may be. Anything else it'd be too saturated and they would just get bought up. Kind of like a new search engine pops up, Google buys it because once you have the four, it's there's no one, they're just going to buy you, right? So if you're one of those four, you need money to do it. So for me, billions of dollars is kind of the requirement. So that's what I'm just blinders on, sprinting away, capital acquisition. That's my goal right now. And then eventually when there's an actual demand, the business strategy of this is there's already 3 players in the market right now, or 2. One is Planetary Resources, is a company, and one is DSI, which is Deep Space Industries. And basically they have, I think they're invested with Google's an investor. I think Peter Diamandis, who's like the X Prize guy, he's like the CEO or something like that. But I think they're doing it all backwards because there's no demand, right? Like there's no moon base. Sure, we have a space station, but the resource demands are, they have the water recirculators, they have everything. There's really very little additional demand. Like the moment you want to build a lunar base, you need actual stuff. You need screwdrivers, you need chicken wings, you need a whole bunch of shit, right? So like whatever. So at this point, there's no demand for extraneous other stuff that could possibly be gotten from these, extraterrestrial kind of objects. So they're investing so much money into R&D, prospecting machines, ion drills. I saw an article recently where they're not going to use kinematics, which is like drilling with like actual contact to break up rock. They're using like fungus to like splatter onto an asteroid. It'll dissolve it, and then you can kind of extract the stuff from the jelly, which is brilliant because you don't need power to do that. You just throw the fungus on, it does its job. You come back 3 years later and you have like pure gold, which is brilliant. So they're putting all this money into R&D. Their investors are kind of just like, there's no return on our investment. Like, what's going on here? So then when I'm 65 and I have all this money, I can come to those people, go to the board and be like, hey, I can give you 10 times your money back right now, but I buy all your R&D. I buy all your patents. I buy all your stuff. You get your return on your investment. Merry Christmas. And for me, I have the monopoly. I have all the patents. I have all everything. And then I just hit go and I'm monopolize the asteroid mining market. So that's the goal. So that I need the funding to do that. So all this stuff is kind of just a means to an end, as you said. So
that is awesome. So you're basically taking the Elon Musk approach of like starting other companies to build the capital yourself, or are you actively looking for investors like now, like building up that CRM or whatever?
Yeah. So right now, the current startup that I just started with one of my buddies in BC, he's actually a Ryerson grad as well. We're focusing on advertising and trying to revolutionize the way radio is done. And I think there's a huge opportunity for innovation. Radio hasn't changed in the last, 40 years or something. And I think that there's a huge increase in people that are consuming radio, whether you like it or not. And I thought people have that knee-jerk reaction to think like, oh, radio is dead. Radio's growing more than TV. It's still alive and it's still kicking ass. So to have something like that hasn't been touched in 40 years, I think that's the move. So for me, I'm putting a lot of my eggs in that basket right now. And then hopefully in the next, year, we get to a point where we can do a little seed round, maybe get a Series A and dominate the radio space. So we'll see how that works. I don't know.
That's awesome. And what was the problem? I remember we talked about this before in another call. You're talking about the problem that you're trying to solve there with radio and advertising, where you're saying it's growing like ever, but the way that people are advertising is they're doing it all wrong.
Yeah. So, well, it's not that they're doing it wrong. I mean, the action of advertising on the radio isn't going to change. It's still going to have these broadcast media companies that have airtime and they fill it with people who want to have people hear their message, right? And hopefully buy their product or service, right? So the main problem and main gap with the last 40 years is that the internet has happened and the ability to kind of collect data has also happened where, broadcast media is on the radio or the TV could have like ratings, and, the Eastern Seaboard is our biggest demographic, but like that means balls if you don't know what that actually means, right? So now you have the internet where you can get very granular data points like session information, abandoned cart information, how many people who were pregnant who wear white socks saw your ad. Like all these different things are common knowledge and almost kind of like put to the back burner for people who only do internet because they're just so accessible to that information that they don't know how much useful stuff they have. Whereas you have a big brand like Nike who they're rolling out a new marketing campaign and 80% of it goes to Facebook ads. 10% goes to some TV commercials and the other 10% just goes to radio. If that's $1 million marketing budget, they know because they can't get the data from radio that $100,000 of that $1 million that they're going to spend on radio is only going to go in the garbage because they can't get any data back. All they can say is just like, well, we need a well-rounded campaign, so let's just put it into radio and see what happens. They don't know how many people bought from that ad unless they go into the store and the clerk is just like, did you hear our ad? And then they say yes, and then they write it on their little note. Like, that is not scalable. That is not what is going to win you valuable information. So we are coming in to kind of the same level of data analytic capabilities that you can do online with a Facebook ad, we can kind of do with a radio ad. And I think that is going to be super powerful and the new standard in the next year, I think.
Totally. That's just bringing it up to speed with everything else. Just like come to this century, basically.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And how much of that are you thinking like is going to be like the new radio, like podcasting, independent radio, like, you know, the Joe Rogans of the world, yes, but, you know, using like Spotify and all these other things that are basically, they try to do it almost the opposite way. Like, hey, radio, come to our platform where it is built on the internet and we have all this analytics. Like Spotify is doing, I think, a really good job of that. So how much do you think about like the new radio and like podcasting and using the internet for distribution? Or is it purely just like traditional radio and penetrating that market?
Well, we have a multi-phase plan. Obviously, the first phase is doing the radio side. We obviously have plans to kind of expand to the podcast world, the YouTube world, this Twitch world, and basically, without giving too much detail away, the simple solution is that we want to be the hands of audio. So anything that you can do with your ears as input and stop there, usually, we want to be able you to continue that experience with your hands or your voice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because like the simple way to explain it is like you're in your car, you're driving, you hear an ad for Adidas. No matter how good that ad is, you will never pull over and go to the Adidas website. Never.
Right.
Absolutely never.
Totally.
You're just going to wait until you go home. You're having your dinner with your wife and you're like, oh yeah, that Adidas ad. Honey, I'll be right back. And you like go on your phone and like maybe that happens. That's the problem with radio is like traditional Facebook or digital marketing has a clear call to action and a clear finish line of their marketing funnel, and there isn't one on radio, and that's the thing that we're going to be providing.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same with TV too, right? But I think like the philosophy behind, you know, old ads, I just want to call it, I don't know how we can just make the distinction. The old version of advertising was just like, just influence people. Just put your message into their brain so that when they go to sleep.
Top of mind awareness.
Exactly. When they go to sleep,
top of mind awareness is king. Yeah.
They mull, they maybe have a dream about it. They don't even remember. Then the next day they're like, oh yeah, I need shoes. Oh yeah, well Adidas, obviously. So it's just like,
exactly,
man, that stuff blows my mind with advertising because like you'll see billboards, even if you don't think they're effective, like it's like you're putting your brand into people's consciousness, which is now the same thing with Facebook scrolling, right? It's just like you're putting it into their consciousness and programming it into their brain. It's so weird.
Well, I read this thing. I've been obsessing with radio and voice for the last, like, I don't know, 6 months or something to kind of really pick apart this market. And there's this kind of common notion that it takes on average 22 radio ads of the same thing for a person to commit to pulling the trigger on something.
Jeez.
The first one is just like literal, like you're unaware of it.
It's like a whisper. It's like a whisper,
one.
like Nike.
Yeah, it's literally like your neighbor farted in the kitchen 3 houses away. And it's like you don't even know what's happened, but it happened, and that matters. And then like 11 is like, I'll do this, you know. And then like 22 is like, honey, I need these goddamn boosts, you know, or whatever. So having that frequency of having someone see your content or your ad or your want 22 times is getting more and more difficult because of how waterfall media is right now.
Totally.
So it's like you have this little shot glass and you're under a giant waterfall and you're like hoping to collect those 22 things. It's like, good luck. That's not going to happen.
No. What are some things that you do? Because that's actually a really good topic right now. It's like, you know, we are bombarded with information. And I know you're an avid consumer. You're constantly researching. Like, I want to get into like you research for this current venture, and it seems like you're always researching and always on top of your sort of future goals with asteroid mining. So how do you take this knowledge? How do you filter it? And then how do you save it for later to make it useful when it actually becomes useful? Like, for example, like the asteroid mining, like you're saying this is like years down the road. Like you're not even really thinking about acting on it.
Probably.
Yeah.
No.
But like you still stay on top of it because obviously it's a passion of yours. So how do you keep all these things going and learn about it, but like, you know, just keep it in the back of your mind, I guess?
Well, honestly, I know it sounds weird, but the simple thing is I'm just addicted. Like, this is what I do. Some of my friends hate me because I don't see them for months at a time because I'm in my office doing what they would think is boring stuff, but I'm addicted, like literally scratching addicted to keeping up to date with what I think is going to pop soon. And that's just something that just gets me going. And I think that that is important. And I think that that's not a requirement, but it definitely helps. Like if you're not this maniacal, then like that alone gives me a better shot than you.
Totally.
Simple as that, right? It's as clear cut and dry as that. It's like, if you're not doing this 15 hours a day, 18 hours a day, maybe it's not productive, but I'm not doing other useless shit. It's kind of shotgun focus rather than like sniper focus, but at least I'm shooting at the target with a shotgun. Not just kind of like at the bar,
right?
Not at the shooting range. You know, I'm still shooting, but I'm not, you know, I'm distracted. Anyway, that's a weird analogy, but
no,
I think
that's a great analogy. We talked about this. I actually have this in my notes when we're talking about sort of like how you view failure, which is like you just have to keep taking shots. And this is sort of like your mental model. I want you to share that mental model with people because I love that. I love the way you think about that with entrepreneurship, with business, with just, you know, taking your shot in the world. Like we're in this game and you have to take your shots. And I love the way that you think about it. So I want you to just kind of like really go deep on that.
Sure. And I think one of the thing that always stays in my brain with how I approach kind of life in general. So it doesn't have to be about my goals. It doesn't have to be about my family or those are all included. But I look at my progress as my own John Marzo human being as kind of this like little stream, right? And the stream is filled with like little rocks and other fish. Don't get me wrong. Like I have other people in my life. No shit. And the ocean is kind of like making it. And like you're out of the stream, you're out of the rat race, you're out of the like little, whatever you want to call it. Like I'm in the ocean. I'm like my own person now. And like when I go through my life, which is going through the stream, there's going to be little rocks. A rock would be like a problem that you have to solve. I prefer to immediately deke around the problem rather than try to like chisel away at the rock. This hit home to me a little like a week ago. Little tangent, but I was in this little health group on WhatsApp with some of my friends from Ryerson, and it's like a little accountability group for us to go on bike rides every day and just track our progress and put the notes in the group and whatever. And we had this like little misunderstanding of what the goals were. And I eventually left the group because it wasn't in line with my goals. The person who kind of brought me into the group was kind of pissed at me and was like, hey man, like I've noticed like you always like jump from thing to thing and it's kind of annoying. And I was like, well, to be honest, like I have my own goals and like this is getting in my way. So like I'm still going to work out, but I'm going to do it my own way. Like I don't have to be accountable to you guys. Like I'm just going to do my own thing and still be healthy, get the same result. But I'm not going to get hung up in the details of like hammering out this thing for no reason. So the bird's eye view of this like river analogy is like, while you guys are like wasting away at this little rock and like teaming up, let's try to chip away at the rock. Like I'm already at the ocean. Like I'm already gone. Like I'm not worrying about the little things. Like you try something, problem, deke. Try something, problem, deke. But you're always going forward. And then you'll get really good at deking around rocks. Right. And you'll just be like super limber and, agile. If you want to bring it back to entrepreneurship is fail fast, understand that this isn't going to work, get the hell out of Dodge and just do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing. And eventually there's nothing left to do, but just win. And that's the goal, right? Is just to not have these hangups on like little minutia problems.
That is awesome. I fucking love that mental model. And it's always these little mental models and these philosophies I love to just keep and keep building on. That's kind of why I do this podcast. That's the entire reason why I do this podcast. Because like you have like these mental models that I never even thought of it that way. Like, yes, you can always think of life as a stream, but people tend to think that these rocks are like just blockages. Like you cannot get around it, but you're right. It's like a rock off to the side. You can keep hitting into it or you can just go around it. I love that analogy.
Yeah. Like the water goes around it. So why can't you, like it doesn't make any sense. Like,
and if you can't go around it, go under it, go over it, just get the fuck over that rock.
Yeah, exactly. And like, sure. The inverse is also not true, but understandable where there's like pride in dealing with that rock. And there's like, some sort of achievement of like dealing with that. I championed the rock. It's like, okay, well, if you look at like the decision tree of the possibilities, it's like you can either be farther ahead without that achievement, or you can be behind with like a little medal and like whatever result you got. It's like, you can think however you want. I want to be farther. So that's just how I work. So that's just simple as that.
Oh, I love that, because that brings back some things to how I've been thinking. That actually really helps me. I think that unblocked a huge stream for me right now, because as you know, I've been so bullish on VR. I still am. I know it's going to be at least part of the future, if not like a big part of media future.
I agree completely.
But like, yeah, sure. So this is why I want to bring this up, because it's like, I feel like I've been hitting that rock. Like you said, trying to get that achievement of just trying to do. I'm going to try to almost claim that rock of like, I just want to build this VR company, build something really interesting in this space. But it's like, okay, like right now it's like, it's putting you behind. Like, do I just, and I always bring this up. It's like, is it possible, do you think, to keep that and bank that idea? Just be like, you know what, I have something built, it's pretty cool, or that idea, or just take those lessons learned, bank it, and then put it in a backpack, keep going, and then maybe come back to it later. Or is it gone? Like, how do you view that?
No, I mean, I think it's never ever gone. It's always going to be, I mean, again, first principles, I always like collecting variables. You know, now I have an A, now I have a B, now I have a C. And eventually, if I'm like at N and I like need a B, need a G, and need a J, like I have them, right? So I can make my N or whatever the case may be. So if you're like throwing away these things and not kind of being a jack of all trades a little bit, you kind of lose those things. Because the internet exists, you can always top up your knowledge. But if you don't know something exists, like, you're useless, because you can't even make those little mental connections to kind of give you that next idea. Like, you might be so blinded to look at VR as VR, but maybe in like 7 years, VR plus cooking or whatever, VR plus construction might be like $1 billion thing. And like, maybe.
Totally.
But if you know balls about construction or balls about food, you can start a team with someone who doesn't know anything about VR, but that's something you have to be aware of and kind of keep your finger on the pulse of. Whereas like, I know I'm not going to start an asteroid mining company in at least 40, 50 years. So forgetting about it might be really bad, because like, maybe this development comes out where the standard is that like biological mining rather than like kinematic mining. And like, I'm 65, ready to push go, and someone's already done it because it's way cheaper to do biological mining. And I didn't need $1 billion. I only needed 5 million. And I could have done this 20 years ago. So you need to keep on top of it, but not keep it like a ball and chain from you learning E, F, G, N, whatever. Otherwise, just go be a professor. Like, legit. If you're like addicted to VR because you like it, then just go get a PhD and don't do anything else.
Man, I actually love that analogy, because a lot of people, especially in business, like, you need to have a niche. You have to have a niche. You have to like do this one thing. You have to be known as the designer that does this. And like, you know, that's been taught by especially some like of these business gurus, some people out there, like, you need to find your niche, find your one thing, whatever. And I think what we're getting at here, and I think we can both agree, it's like this almost generalist approach at it. If you're going to go niche down and you want to do that one thing, like you said, get your PhD, go as far as you can, but then you're stuck basically teaching people that as a professor or whatever.
Exactly. Like, if you want to innovate, it takes the unknowns to get a new thing. Like, because VR already exists, you're not going to invent VR.
Exactly.
So if you're not doing anything with VR, it will only ever be just VR.
That's exactly it. And I think like with most things in the world nowadays, nothing is really truly original. It's always like, things exist. Everything pretty much fucking exists. Every idea for a book, for a movie, it all exists. So the only way you can get something new is to combine things. Like, that's what innovation is.
Yeah, exactly. It's to make some alloy where it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and now you have like some cool thing, you know?
They're like, oh my God, this is like brand new. We've never seen this before, but we have a million times.
This is just a little bit of frosting on top. That's all it is. Yeah, exactly. So those revolutionary ideas, and to get back to your point, like, I think, again, this is like, if I was you, I think you don't want to be the Google Glass. So like, if this isn't the time, recognize that. Beating a dead horse might be like, maybe, especially with COVID, this is a totally different landscape, different whatever. Maybe not many people want to share face masks for the next 5 years.
Exactly.
You have to be okay with that as a person. Not as a business person, but as a person who's understanding the market. You kind of have to step back and be like, fuck, like, would I start this right now with everything going on?
Yeah, not would I continue. It's like, just go back from beginner's mindset. Would I start this right now?
Yeah. Right now, if you didn't have anything, but you have the knowledge, you can't take that away. Would you start what you've already begun today? If not, then like use it as a variable for later when this thing comes up, or maybe they have the Neuralink chip, you can do VR in your brain. Then you're like, oh, hey, I know how to run a VR company. That just takes a little bit of tweaking. And now I need this, and now I need this, and I need a hat that keeps your head cool because the bandwidth is too high for VR, whatever the hell. Like that's when you push go. But I think you don't want to be Google Glass and don't want to be blinded to the fact that the market is the market.
Right, that's true. And I mean, just go with the market. It's like what we were doing was location-based, and exactly that. How many people want to share face masks right now?
Zero, dude.
No. Even with like the technologies out, we have UV, like the highest fucking quality UV cleaning boxes, but like, is that going to change people's mindset?
But that's a solution to a nuke. That's
exactly.
Like a nuke goes off and you're giving people band-aids, dude.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
It's I think that like not that the ship has sailed. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that like you have an uphill climb to like really smash VR right now.
Right.
Honestly.
Totally. And it's like, why not wait until that becomes a downhill fucking glide?
Yeah, at that point, because a lot of people who are the contenders, like it's kind of this double-edged sword where like it's kind of like the cockroach analogy where like you're a cockroach trying to survive this like Armageddon, and your competitor is another cockroach trying to survive this Armageddon. You can do one of two things in this like prisoner's dilemma: is you can like fight that cockroach and hopefully survive and become strong enough to when like the grass starts growing again, you're like this dazed cockroach who just dominates, right? Or you like dip because you know that other cockroach is just going to die. Like it's untenable. The grass isn't going to come before it can have babies. Like it's dead. And by that point, you're also not dead. And you've already started down the path of like next thing.
Totally.
So that's the decision you have to make, is like if you have, a laundry list of competitors that are like fighting tooth and nail to kind of like hopefully win at this right now, the winning move might be to like dip and let them all kill each other. And the market has dictated that that's not in demand right now. And you just win at something else and not be a dead cockroach in a volcano.
Man, that is a great analogy. That makes total sense to me. Cause like, and then we're seeing like Oculus and Facebook, they're that dazed cockroach. They're just killing. Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
So you just want to get the hell out of there. No, I've been thinking about it. That's a really, really good way to think about it. I think that's perfect. So for you too, it's like, I know we can kind of bring this back a bit because you were kind of in that same scenario with a few other apps in the past. And like, I mean, you were obviously easy to be like, again, that rock, you're saying, fuck it, let's just go around. Let's go to the next thing.
It sucks, dude. It sucks.
It does, yeah.
It was like, yeah. Some of those projects I think had a lot of potential. And I think that if things worked out differently, the first one, maybe, okay, not the first one, but I've been doing this since I was like a kid, but the first real one, because that's a funny story too. Like when I was a kid, in elementary school, kind of where all this started, is at you obviously went to elementary school. Did you guys have like 3 recesses as well? The little one, lunch one, and the second little one?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So in the first little one, I would like go around the playground and collect everyone's money. And then in the lunch one, I would go far into like the next neighborhood and go to the convenience store and buy everyone snacks. And then like obviously charge more because like I needed snacks. And then save them in my backpack. And then by that point, that was like a long walk. And I would like, recess would be over and I'd go back into class with everyone's shit in my backpack. And then on third recess, I would go and like deliver all these snacks to people. But I would eat my snacks for free because like I charged more for their snacks. So I just like had bare snacks every day. So that was my first process of like supply and demand of like, okay, all these kids like can't leave the property, but like, fuck that, I'll leave, and then like just get them some like Mars bars or whatever the fuck. So anyway, so that's just like a little where it all kind of started. I was like,
dude, that's such a good way to think about business, because like when you think about like the world, everyone's so conditioned to be in recess, in this confined space. Like you work your job, you go home, you commute back home, you're in this world, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna. It's like being a free thinker, right? Like going outside, literally outside the box.
Literally, there are sidewalks and there's sidewalks and stop signs for a reason, for people, for like pedestrians to like walk. So like, I'm gonna leave the schoolyard now. I'll be back, and then like just come back with Doritos and shit. That's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, so I thought that'd be funny to share. But anyway, so the first kind of real one was in I think it was in first year. So I started this. That's where I met you actually,
Yeah.
So at the DMZ, I was working on this. So I was working on an app called Bumble. So not that one. So that's why
not the big one.
Not the big
female
one.
one.
Not the app, not the dating app. Yeah. So anyway, so I was working on this app called Bumble, and basically the best way to describe it is it is what Snapchat uses now for their like location chatting. So Snapchat, I don't have Snapchat anymore, but the last time I saw it, there's like this map and there's like people on the map, and you can like click hotspots and like chat with people in those hotspots and like see where Kelly is on the map or whatever, right? So that's what we did. Literally, we were making that app. And we were about to launch. We were doing all these things. Notoriously, chat apps have this like critical mass user problem where like if you don't have a lot of users, you're not going to have any engagement when you're on the app. But if you don't have any engagement on the app, you're not going to get any users. So you have this, what do you do first, chicken and the egg dilemma, right? So we invested almost all of our budget into marketing, t-shirts, stickers, fucking getting the word out so that on the launch day, we have as many users as possible to make it seem like a popular app. The problem with that though is if something happens to your brand identity, you're fucked, dude.
Right. Because it's all on branding at that point.
If people know you as Bumble and then a new Bumble comes out with way more money and way more reach, you're the did you mean on Google, and then you're dead.
Then you're fucked.
Someone looks you up on Google and they're like, oh, did you mean this Bumble?
That's dead. The worst. You're done. You may as well just give up. Are you saying just stop at that point?
Yeah. And that sucked, dude. But that's what I'm saying. So that was my rock. There was a little rock in front of me. I was so emotionally invested in this. I was like, oh, I'm going to be fucking rich. I'm going to be a billionaire. This is the thing. This is when app craziness was happening. This was like 2013 when
like
everyone
Snapchat
and their dog
craze. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone and their dog wanted to make an app, right? So at this point, I was like, okay, this is my ticket. I'm gonna be a fucking billionaire. This is it. I did it. And go on TechCrunch. Ex-Tinder employees start new app called Bumble. I was like, pull the plug, dude. Next.
You just had to do it. Rip the Band-Aid off.
No point. Literally no point. There's no point.
And they're so big now, man. They're a huge multi-billion-dollar company, which is crazy.
That's the thing. So, and that honestly is the key. Is taking emotion out of it. Understanding you're in a losing position and just like, new game.
Right. Before you lose it all, before you lose your shirt. Yeah.
Good game.
Yeah.
I lost. I literally lost. And that's how that I think was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life, dude. To be like so invested. All these people were rooting for me. Everyone around the campus saw the stickers, had Bumble shirts, was like, we were going to launch at Frosh Week and get all the people to like use the chat during Frosh Week. And like, I was a Frosh leader and we trained all the Frosh leaders to like, this is how you use the app. This is how you get all the Froshies to like communicate with you, blah, 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 blah. Literally 3 days before Frosh Week, TechCrunch article comes out and we're nuked. And that's it.
Damn. And you didn't want to change the name, change the branding and just keep going with the infrastructure.
All of the money was invested in the name. So that's what I was saying. Because if you have that critical mass issue, all the stickers say Bumble, all the t-shirts say Bumble. The moment you want to be fucking Doug's chat app, they'll be like, what's that? Is that like Bumble? And then you're you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So it's over. It
reminds me of the Rick and Morty, the little alien. Hey, want to build my app? Have you seen that?
Yeah. No, I want to. I haven't seen the latest Rick and Morty, but I want to.
I think he's been in like a few episodes now. It's so funny. Anyways, that's totally doesn't really matter. But man, oh fuck, that does suck. And I know what you're saying because it like you always think like how things could have been, and it's definitely hard to like think like this because you never want to go in the past. Like what's in the past is done. It's totally done. But
it's useful though because like we use all the different little skills along the way, and that's the thing. And like just because you're not beating the rock up doesn't mean you didn't gain shit.
Right. So what did you gain out of that? What did you learn from that whole experience? That was your first like real startup. So I'm sure you learned a lot that you probably even take on today when you're starting projects. Yeah. Like
we had some, not founder problems, but we had like, this was the first one. Everyone was in university. Everyone was busy. Everyone was like doing midterms. So like me, I'm like super addicted. I don't care. I'll fail the class. I'll drop out. Like I'm CEO mode. Like I want this to win. If you're not, like you're not CFO, get the fuck out of here. It's as simple as that. Like if I had a midterm to study for, or I had a meeting to like maybe get us some money, like I'm failing that midterm. Like that's just how I am. Because I know at that moment, the rock is the midterm. The rock isn't this meeting. because like my thing is like the ocean, dude. Like I need to like be 65 and on a rocket ship. And like, what's going to help me get there? Like this little midterm of, first year statistics, or like maybe getting us $5 million. Like, right. I don't know. That's your call, but I made my call, right? So
yeah, totally.
I clearly didn't do the best in school, but that's
most successful people aren't, though. Most successful people don't do very well because they don't give a fuck.
They think like that.
Yeah,
I think they think like that.
Give a fuck. They realize that it's bullshit. They realize that it's fake. It's just like, you don't really need it. I mean, unless you're like, hey, I really need to get this great job. I need to have my degree and great.
Well, I would argue there's certain things, like if you're in medicine, like you need to be a good fucking doctor.
You better be a good
I don't
doctor.
want no D- doctor, dude. And neither do you.
No, I don't want no fucking YouTube doctor. No, fuck that shit.
No, exactly. That's the thing, the difference. That's the difference. Totally. I think that there are clear outlier things where like education and like formal, rigorous education is non-negotiable.
Right.
Law, I think, but law might be automated soon by like robots, which I think is sick. But
smart.
Like medicine and arguably, I don't know, there was another one that I was having this conversation with someone else, but medicine for sure is just like, you got to be tippy top or like get the fuck out of here.
So what about engineering? Because I mean, there's a lot of self-taught computer engineers and computer scientists. And then from what you studied, and maybe not aerospace, maybe you do want to learn from there, but I'm sure there's ways to be sort of self-taught in the industrial engineering space. No,
honestly, I think the if you treat it like a litmus test, I think the biggest indicator of requiring formal education versus like a skill share, arguably, is the human component. So something like, I think engineering, I think mathematics, I think chemistry, maybe not chemistry, this is the opposite, but like all the things I just listed, you can learn from a textbook because the formulas haven't changed in 200 years or whatever the case may be. Math is math. Sure, new things get, conjectured and all these different things get developed and refined, but math is math. Like you can learn that no problem. But the moment you have to give like a group presentation or like debate someone or pour a chemical into another one and see what happens or smell it or see how hot the exothermic reaction is, or the human kind of sensory element of like getting butterflies before your presentation, like all these things. If you're a professional speaker and you still get like butterflies because you've never spoken in front of someone before, like that's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
But if you're like an engineer who like only job is to do like some statistics and math, whether I think you learn that in a classroom or learn that from a textbook, like I don't care.
Right. And and I think we both agree. I mean, you finished school. It's not like you dropped out to do Bumble and all these other things. It's like,
no, I got my ring, boy. I got my ring.
Yeah. You're legit. How is that like an everyday wearing now? Is that like a fucking like pride? Like this is
that's
dope.
Yeah, that's standard. Yeah, that's my everyday. Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy about that. It's a big accomplishment, very big accomplishment for me anyway. A lot of people get it done, but for me, it was a very big. It took me 7 years to graduate a 4-year program, bro.
Crazy. Well, that's because you're doing so much too and doing all these other things and going.
Yeah, but I did it. So I'm happy about that.
Which it makes sense. Yeah, you did what you did. And I think you learned a lot more that way. But I think that's really cool because, a lot of people would have just quit. And I think you're right. It's just like, maybe that was your rock. You're like, I just want to dominate because it's only a few years, whether it was 4 or 7, that's something you can bring with you. And I think there is, I think like right now, everyone being told not to go to school, like that's like now like the main thing. Like even me and Marissa are talking about like our future possible kids. Like we don't even really want them to go to like elementary school just because it's kind of bullshit. But like then with post-secondary, it's like, especially now, they're like, don't go to school, especially right now with COVID. Like, why are you paying $50,000 in the States for fucking Zoom classes? But I think like having that degree is there's something there. I think, and like you said, I think it's like the human aspect. Like I've met some of my best friends there, probably had my greatest memories and learned my greatest lessons at school. And what I found is university isn't what you learn in the classroom, right? So what you learn outside of the classroom. Like I learned from you by us chatting at the DMZ. That never would have happened if I didn't go to Ryerson. And then you and I got I got a lot of money from that university, probably more than I paid, just because being an entrepreneur, they really
agreed.
Right. And I want to talk about this. This is awesome. So if you're going to a school that really cherishes entrepreneurship and they're going to pay you, like Ryerson's really good at that. They have like great student grants. God. And you did, what was the one you did? You did the Esch Awards, right?
Yeah, in engineering, there's I guess a grant scholarship kind of award from the Norman Esch Foundation. You can look that up. It's ESCH is how you spell it, or ECH or something. And Norman Esch. And basically they have these awards. They're stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and they're $5,000, $8,000, and $25,000 respectively, that are different stages of your potential startup. So, and they do them, I think, 3 times a year, 3 times like a school year. So it'd be like October, February, and then April or something like that. And anyone in engineering and architecture could apply for these awards. So stage 1 was super easy. It was just an idea, dude. Literally, you put, an idea on a piece of paper and you fill out some forms. You're like, this is my idea for your consideration. And you send them the idea. And if they like it, they give you $5,000, bro. So, so the funny thing was,
give you the money. Like, just here's your idea.
Yeah. Well, like in hopes of like you develop it, you go to the next stage.
2. Yeah.
Stage 2 was market readiness. So you have to do like a business plan. You have to do your market. You have to determine who you're going to sell to, who your competitors are, like why they're shit, why you're better, like do the whole thing and then submit that report. It's like a big report. So that one's the more difficult one to attain. That's $8,000. And then the last one is hopefully you've used the 5 and the 8 and the knowledge along the way to apply for stage 3, which is $25,000, which is like you're like market ready. Like you just need money to like buy a storefront to sell your product, or you need $25,000 to like buy 100 lawnmowers to do your lawn company. You are like ready to go, right? So the very funny thing about this is until I started applying for them, you could apply for as many as you wanted.
What?
So, yeah. So you could apply for stage 1 60 times.
No way. I did not know that. As long as you're an engineering student at Ryerson.
As long as you're in engineering and architecture, yeah. But that's where the funny thing is. So you could like hypothetically, if you have a friend who like has an idea but is not in engineering, you could like make friends with an engineer, tell them to apply for you and like give them a cut.
I totally did that. When you were doing your social thing, remember when I did Hub, I did that with one of my friends who's an engineer, and he got us some money. And again, it's the same kind of story as you. I'll talk about it for another day, but I really want you to talk a little bit more about the idea and like the project that you actually did, because you did all 3 stages with this, didn't you? I
didn't get stage 3, but I got 1 and 2. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I won a couple stage 1s, and then
so you did do multiple stage 1s.
Oh yeah, but then they changed the rules because they would always see me apply, and they're like, John fucking applied again.
You can't keep
giving this guy money. Yeah, it was hilarious. So they changed the rules, but I think it was really funny. So if you won a stage 1, you couldn't apply for a stage 1 again, which objectively I think is very harmful for their reputation. Because if you look at yeah, I think so. Because if you look at the entrepreneurial journey, let's say you have an idea and you want to start a fucking lawn mowing company, and that's your idea, and they think it's good, and you've done a little thing, and you're doing automated lawn mowing, and you have like these little Roombas or some shit, whatever. Yeah. Right. So you think that that's a good idea. That's your idea. You haven't vetted it. That's just your idea. They like the idea for you to go test your market. You're like, sweet, I won stage 1. Cool. You get your money. I am going to do some market research. In my phase 2, I've learned that it's a shit idea. I'm not going to win stage 2. I'm not even going to apply. I now know that it's a shit idea. So I have to go back to the drawing board, but I can't apply for stage 1 again.
Then you're kind of screwed. Yeah.
Then I'm fucked. Then I'm like, I'm crippled by your system. Thankfully, obviously, like it's a grant. Like I'm very happy that this is a thing that they were doing. So I'm not going to be like beggars can't be choosers kind of thing.
Totally.
But if you really want the crux of your thing to be for helping out the entrepreneur, like most of the times, the ideas will be shit. Honestly.
Yeah. Because you don't know. You really don't know until you start going down that path. Like you can think it's a great idea, or you can think it's an amazing idea, but then you don't know that, again, there's another Bumble coming out. Like you just don't know until that smacks you in the face. That reality smacks you in the face, right?
Exactly. So that was that. So the thing that I designed for the stage 1 and stage 2 that I'd won is I designed a dustpan that doesn't leave a dustpan line.
Revolutionary. I fucking hate that. No, I fucking hate that. It's my biggest pet peeve, man. Brings me back to elementary school days. Like, Josh, you're in charge of sweeping up the floor today, and then you're doing the corner like 10 times because that fucking line.
I know, and that really bugged me. So I was going through this phase where I think I was in mechanical, And I was really addicted to design and ergonomics and design for manufacturing and all these different nuances to design. But I didn't like moving parts because I wanted to be a simple, market ready. I only need one mold, one material. I was then starting to thinking about commercializing it. And I was like, if I want to design this thing to sell to 1 million people, it can't be complicated. It can't be expensive. It's just got to be something you get at the dollar store. So I redesigned the hammer, the dustpan, the axe, everything, screwdriver, changed a lot of shit. And one of the things that stuck was this dustpan that I eventually got a patent for. And that now is on the back burner.
So you're banking that. Like you have the patent, so at least you have this time where you have the patent and you can bank it.
Yeah, because the resources at my hands right now are more difficult than to do this tech startup that I'm currently doing. Because like China is going through this COVID thing. It's impossible to deal with factories. Like I've been to China multiple times to talk to manufacturers and to like get my molds and like do all this stuff. But like trying to grow a business that's a manufacturing home goods company right now is an inefficient use of my resources, being time, energy, and money. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm wasting my time dealing with a Chinese supplier who's going to get back to me in 2 months, or I'm wasting my money buying a mold for some guy who's then going to die from COVID, or I'm wasting my energy because it's like too much stress to think about this supply chain right now, I might as well do something else. So it's in my variable set as like G. And eventually if I need G, I'll pull it out of my bag and use it. But for now, I'm like deking around that rock and like keep going.
I love that. I fucking absolutely love that. And I want you to talk about the patent process, because we talked about this in our last call. A lot of people think it's almost like impossible to get patents. And they think it's like a weird like process. So I would like you to kind of talk about the process of getting that patent.
So from a more bang for your buck, objectively speaking, the US is obviously where to go because they have 10 times the market. So if you can invest a bit more in getting a US patent, that'd be great.
And how much does it cost all in?
In both US and Canada, there's 2 different types. So there's 4 different types across North America. So in Canada, there's what's called the design patent, industrial design patent, and then there's a utility patent. So in Canada, a design patent is just look and feel, the way something looks and the way something feels. So like my phone, if I got a design patent for it and I said, you can't make this phone, if all of a sudden my phone, I have a little pop socket on the back, right? So if all of a sudden I pop it out and it looks like that, it no longer is covered by my patent because it looks different.
Okay.
So design patents are very good with things that are like a particular shape.
Cool.
But don't have moving parts.
Furniture and shit like that.
Snow shovels.
Yeah, right,
whatever.
Right. So that's what the dustpan would have been.
Exactly. And it's cheaper because there's no moving parts.
Right.
So then the other thing is the utility patent, which is the use. So I could say like a device that goes on your phone that does this. So whether it looks like a circle or looks like a square, it does the same thing. So that's the difference.
Right.
And that sort of difference also translates to the States, but they're different names.
Right.
They're also way more expensive. So a design patent is a couple $1,000s. And then a utility patent is upwards of like 8, depending on the lawyer.
8,000. Okay. Yeah. Because you're paying the lawyer to do it. And then obviously there's probably fees to the government too.
That's rolled in. Again, depending on the lawyer. Yeah. So the beautiful thing with me is when I got that stage 1 from Esh, my $5,000 went to a patent.
Cool.
And the lawyer was like the Ryerson lawyer. So it was cheaper to begin with anyway.
Perfect. That's awesome.
So a lot of people don't know that you get legal services for free most times at your university.
Yeah.
For school related shit. So this wasn't school. This is business. So I had to pay them, obviously.
Yeah.
But I got the money from the school. So it's like I'm net positive. Like I just now have a patent for free, basically.
Yeah. And you get some money out of it too.
Yeah, exactly.
For your time. Here's some more money for your time for dealing with this shit.
Here's another $5,000. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I think people, if they're sitting on something that they think is big, and okay, I mean, this is through my privileged lens, which I agree with, is like, you know, I'm not middle-aged, but I mean, like middle line poverty, like in the spectrum. I'm a white guy in North America, so a couple $1,000s isn't that much.
Right.
To a lot of people it is, right? So take that with a grain of salt. I don't want to upset anyone by saying a couple $1,000s isn't that much money, but it might be. So those are the kind of facts, and that's what you can do with what you must, but it's really not prohibitively expensive. Like it's like $100,000 or something. Like
right.
It's really not that bad.
Right. And then what's like the process like? Is it like really arduous process to like, do the designs and all that stuff?
Mine was a design patent, and I took, engineering drawing in school. So I did my own drawings.
Right.
And basically the simple thing is like solid lines of the drawing are what you're claiming, and dotted lines are things you're omitting. So like if you're improving something, so let's say my design patent is just my little pop socket. For help with the adjudicator, which is the person who works at the law office, I'm not patenting the phone. I'm just patenting the phone kickstand. The phone would be dotted line, and then the kickstand would be solid line. So they know that like I'm only claiming the little guy. I'm not claiming the whole phone.
Gotcha.
And that's the simple. So it's really, really simple.
Nice. And for like anyone who's like thinking about doing this, like when do you think people should even do this? Like at what point is it like, or why and when?
It depends on the person. Like a lot of people, I know I have friends like this.
Companies sit on it. There's like all these patent wars, I know.
Oh yeah.
That kind of shit.
They patent troll, and that's a whole different problem. But to the lay person who's just like sitting at dinner and has that like little eureka moment for like a new spoon or whatever the hell, like depending on your means and how you use your resources, which are time, energy, and money. If you work 3 jobs and you have 800 kids, like you're not going to be an inventor. Legit. So you just, no matter if you have the next dustpan or whatever the case may be, like if you are not the person to do it, then like just don't waste your money. Because a lot of these people will like say they have this brilliant idea and then sit on it for a variety of reasons, whether they're lazy, they don't have the money, or they're just not the right person for the job.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on your personality and if you're equipped to redirect the resources in your life to make this thing a reality.
Totally. So for those people who are sort of like the inventors or want to be inventors, just like the entrepreneurs, they're like, hey, like I have this idea for a new spoon, whatever, a new fork with like 20 fucking sporks, whatever the hell it is.
Prongs.
The prongs on the spork, but it's a spork because it's also a spoon.
Yes.
So like, would it be for them, they want to actually go and manufacture? And I mean, it's only for a couple of years, right? The patents actually last. Or is it like, hey, I want to build this great idea and I want to sell the patent to like IKEA or some shit? I guess that's one of the 2 reasons, right?
Yeah, it depends on the use. Like if you're trying to exit and you just like literally want to approach, because my strategy was like, I didn't want to make dustpans. I just wanted to get this patent, prove it, and then go to Rubbermaid and sell them the IP. That was my plan. So like it would take me way more time to be a company than it would be to guy selling IP. So for my like river, again, analogy is like I have school, I have to get my degree, I have like other companies that I'm trying to do. Do I really want to like be the sham wow guy right now? No. Right. But I could use that influx of cash. So let's redirect the resources to like optimize that exit. And that's what I've been doing. And like I had a call with Rubbermaid. They like kind of like the idea, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I don't have time to do this right now. So I'm just like, next thing.
So that ends part 1 of this episode. So check back for the next episode where we get into e-commerce, billionaires and monopolies, and space travel.